be honest, even if you have a great idea and somebody steals your idea, it's so much about the execution, right? It is so much about that. Maybe that person does not have your background, right? So they say, yeah, that's a good idea, but I don't know how to build this, right? Or you can sort of present it as in, this is already happening, right? So it's like, we're already doing this and now I'm just sort of validating something. So it's not too vague. It's like, you're already doing something. Most of the people wouldn't want to start from scratch. Even if the idea is good, they just would not want to go out there and start something from scratch. And again, I mean, even if you're building we're building a tech platform, right? And I've talked about this with my CTO, and he says always the same thing. Look, even if somebody knew sort of what we're kind of doing at the back end, for them to be able to configure the exact algorithms in the exact same ways, very unlikely they'll ever build something that's exactly identical. And so, there is I think people overthink that a little bit.
Before you can get to a point that you feel ready to start to engage with your network and to really dig deep and think about, well, what are my transferable skills? Because the good news is we do all have them. And to your point, when I worked in recruitment, which I did for a sort of a 8-year period, ironically, it was often people trying to get into hospitality from retail or FMCG into operational roles and leadership roles. And I would have the pleasure of having conversations with these people a bit like you and I are now. And it was funny because I would always be looking at what they had done and I would be trying to draw boxes next to what are the core competencies I knew that we needed in our industry. So I think it's important to really think in competencies. You're going to need to work out what can you bring with you, whether it's your leadership skills, and within that your emotional intelligence, your critical thinking, your time management. These are universal skills, and I was reading a Forbes article and it lists about 7 of these. So I do some reading on what are transferable skills. There's going to be technical, there's clearly communication, there's how you lead. And there may be some more along the way when you really think about what was your role in terms of broad boxes, not in the minor details of what was in a job description.
I think the brain drain effect, I think employers should be more concerned than the employee side. So, I'll address this separately. So if you're talking about the employee side, I would certainly say that if you did leave the industry and if it's 1 year, 2 year, or however long that may be, there is every opportunity that you're going to be more valued than if you didn't. Because I think it certainly shows a lot of character strengths. It certainly shows your resilience, it shows your adaptability, it shows how easy it is for you to, pick up new traits, new skills, new industries. So there's a lot of positivity there if you do transition into another industry. So I would say, forget that mindset that it would be viewed negatively, because I know as a recruiter, if I'm looking at a CV, as long as it's not a long duration. If your thinking is, I'm going to do this for 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, then I don't think it's a huge gap. Of course, if it's 10, 20 years coming back in, then that's totally different, right? But if it's just to get over this period, it would be viewed certainly positively.
I think everybody gets under pressure. One of the things you also need to do is to be able to delegate, right? So good leaders are not leaders who hold everything and do everything themselves. Good leaders are the ones that empower the people below them or to their peers or even their colleagues above, right? And I think in an industry like meetings and events, and especially now with COVID and everything going on, it's so tough and it's challenging and it's demanding, and companies are wanting more for less. And I think if you just keep to your core competencies or your core values and just again take time and take a step back and not be afraid to just, I need help. And I think that's sometimes women's biggest issue, is that they feel that they're a failure if they put their hand up and say, hey, can you just help me here? And I think in events in particular, people want to do a good job naturally, but you can't do it all.
I think that this is a moment where we need to learn about how to, it's all about balancing. And strategic thinking, to me, there's a lot of definition for a strategy. One that I really like is a very simple one, which is strategy is the right allocation, the smart allocation of your resources. Right? So where you allocate your money, your technology, your people, etc. Right? So this is all about balancing. Balancing what? Balancing the short and the long term. You know, these situations where do I need to focus on the tomorrow, or do I need to focus on what's going to happen in 1 year from now? And probably it's both, and that's complicated. The second is managing uncertainty and going beyond managing inconsistencies, because there is a lot of lack of visibility, whether you like it or not. So you need to learn how to manage these situations where there's no book, right? There is no process, there is no methodologies, there is no one saying go on the left, go on the right. So what I'm doing is trying to balance my team, and again on the short and the long term. But most of it, what I'm trying to embrace myself or with my people, friends, with you is, and to me is the skill. The big skill is how to create simplicity out of chaos.
Now, even when it comes to our work, when we are looking at things like trends and gathering insights from our projects, you realize that a before and after pandemic, the route and the outcome is quite different. So there's always a before and after. Now, if I zoom into the subset of designers, for example, in our company or everywhere, just had a conversation with my creative director the other day. A lot of them feel that because they're at home and some people are in the office, a team A, team B arrangement in Singapore, for example, 50% workforce, it's become very hard for them to bounce ideas off each other. There's a barrier, literally a physical barrier, and that's your screen in front of you. Because it doesn't bring out that human connection and interaction that we are having right now from our very first encounter via Zoom.
Yes.
Feels very, very different. Today
Very
I'm
different.
walking around your house, experiencing your little setup here, which is fantastic, and it's very, very different for designers who can't have that face-to-face interaction with their teammates, with their team leaders. They don't have the sounding board that they are struggling in their work. So what happens? Misaligned understanding in tasks. Sometimes they will feel that their creativity is stifled. They feel a fear of expressing themselves, and sometimes it translates into what they then develop, and it shows in their work. I'm not saying for everyone, but it does happen to a handful of people.